Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome to the start of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode. We are finally ready to get this going on this brand new game. I am so excited. It's the second year we've had the My Team Career Mode on the F1 game. We had so much fun with this series on F1 2020, but it's now time to flip this switch, reset everything, and have a whole different career mode save, a whole different storyline to be built upon this game, and I can't wait to get into this. And equally, if you're looking forward to this one, then be sure to hit that like button already, and if you're new around here, then get subscribed for daily uploads of this My Team series over the coming weeks. Now, as ever, with every single new career mode, we've got a bit of admin work to do at the start of the episode to set everything up, and this year, we've even got some more settings to adjust based off what you guys have voted for in the part 0 of this series. So like last year, at the beginning of this career mode and early seasons, I'm going to have you guys as the board of directors essentially for the team, helping me vote on certain big decisions. So to that effect, you can see on screen right now, we're adjusting the custom career mode settings. That's a new feature on this year's game, and we can adjust the player and AI rates for things like acclaim, the resource rates, the cash, and also player fault and things like that. And you guys were voting in part number 0 of which way we could go. Now, this vote was super close, literally only a couple of actual votes, but the percentages are the same for the split. So to that effect, I'm going to step in and decide that, you know, let's make it a little bit difficult ourselves. We're going to reduce the rates for everything for myself as the player and increase the rates for everything of the AI. So this is going to be a true test because I'm going to be earning so much less money, acclaim, resource points, cash compared to the AI, and they're going to have an increase from the default of the normal standard game. Also new for this year's F1 game are 7 My Team icons, previous drivers, legends of the sport in some cases, that are available to us in the driver market. Now, we're going to start off the career mode not enabling these icon drivers because, for one anyway, you won't be able to sign them off the bat, but I'd rather not have them in the market just there visually, just so it's not a distraction basically. And at the right point, when I feel like it's the right time, maybe I might get your guys' opinions on when the right time might be, we're going to then enable them in the career. We can do that later in the settings, and we'll be able to choose from those 7 icons. But at the start, I just don't want the visual distraction of having them in the driver market. They're still there. We can enable them later when appropriate. So with that initial admin out of the way, now let's get on to creating our brand new team on F1 2021.
Welcome to My Team. Here you'll experience the world of Formula 1 not only as a driver, but as the owner of a brand new F1 team. First things first, let's create your driver.
So a completely clean slate then for our driver profile and our team. So we're going to go ahead and create our character. This year, I thought I'd go a little bit different because I've used the same player face, I think, for the last 2-3 years in the F1 game. So I'm going to switch it up, even though maybe it's a little bit less realistic to what I actually look like in real life. We'll just switch it up just for the sake of having some little difference there. And when it comes to my driver number, well, Yuki Tsunoda in real life has taken number 22, which was the number Jenson Button used to use in Formula 1. That is the reason why I always chose number 22 at the start of the career, because Jenson Button was my favorite F1 driver when he was in the sport. Obviously, you guys know my favorite number, though, is number 7 in everything I do. 7's not available, so my logic is the nearest available number is 8. So we're going to start off with number 8, and maybe down the line in a later season in-game when Raikkonen's retired, I can nick number 7 for my own. Helmet design, though, we're going to choose the middle one. This is actually one I got for a loyalty bonus from owning F1 2020, which is quite nice, so you guys also have that. And we also have the Breaking Point characters, Aiden Jackson, Casper Akerman, and Devin Butler. We've got their helmets available, and also a bonus one for having the deluxe version of the game. But we're going to go with the middle one, and we're going to go with that fluoro lime yellow green and the black to go with the team's colors that you'll see in a moment. We've also got some extra overalls and gloves also available if you got the loyalty bonus for owning the previous F1 game. And finally, another new feature on this game is a new radio call we have to choose.
That was on fire! Woo! Yeah! Thank you. I need a moment.
So that's our in-game driver character. Now we actually get on to creating the actual team itself.
Start with an easy one. What name would you like to give the team?
This will be easy because, as I stated before, we are going to be bringing back Aarava Archer Racing as the team name.
Nice. Now, some kind of income stream is critical, so we need to sign a primary sponsor.
Now, the sponsors. So, you guys were voting on what direction we should go on with choosing our main sponsor. Do we play it easy? Do we go risky with a big goal, or balance in between? And you guys voted for a nice, happy medium between the two and a balance. So, we're not going to go for the riskiest goal and the highest money, but we're also not going to play it too easy. So, we're going to go middle. So, having a look at the options that we've got, I feel like Echo is going to be a good choice. The goal isn't massively risky, but at the same time, we're still getting a good amount of money for it, so a nice balance.
Fantastic, now we've got a budget to work with. Our car won't be going anywhere fast without a power unit, so let's sign a power unit supplier now.
Now, the power unit is a massive decision to kick things off, and you guys have been voting for who we're going to select. Would it be Renault, Honda, Mercedes, or Ferrari? And I can reveal here, in the vote from part number 0, you guys voted for the Honda power unit. Technically, in real life, maybe the best engine now, or the best package with Red Bull. Definitely more reliable than Mercedes, and that's shown in-game. So the power may still be with Mercedes with 95 there in-game, but you can see the durability is actually the worst out of all 4 for the Mercedes power unit. So that's going to be interesting to see how the AI play that. Will we see more penalties for the Mercedes powered teams, grid penalties or failures or whatnot from the Mercedes power unit teams? And for us, hopefully, it's going to mean we're pretty bulletproof in that department. So we're going with Honda.
We almost have all the key partners for our team now, but we still need a teammate for you.
Now, this last decision we have to make on the teammate was something that you guys couldn't vote on simply because the selection that you guys get will be different for everyone. So my selection was going to be totally different maybe to what you guys get, or it might be the same, so there's no way to tell basically. So it's up to me basically to determine what teammate we want to go for. I'm not going to go for Jack Aitken because we had him in Season 1 on F1 2020, but Callum Ilott here really stood out to me because his focus going into this is 84. Now, focus is a brand new stat on this year's game, and it's massive because if you have a high focus driver, that means he's happy, that means he's going to reach his max potential. So although maybe, yes, there are drivers out there that have higher ratings potentially, I think Ilott here from my selection that I've got is a really good happy in between. If we've got the rating 66 compared to the others that are less than 66, but his focus is one of the highest here from the selection that I've got. So I think it's a really nice medium, and we've got a British driver alongside us, so all British lineup. And with that, it's time now to choose and design our starting livery for this year's game. Now, you guys were voting, and it was a clear winner that we're going with the core black color on the base, and then the accents are going to be in white and that fluoro yellow green. So here we are. This is the livery we're going to go with. I've chosen the design that you get for being loyal and having F1 2020, and I think it's a really good livery. We've got some others available. We've got actually some ones based off the helmet designs of the Breaking Point characters, and also some 3 starter ones. Of course, by the time you guys get the game, maybe the podium pass might be available, and there may be some other liveries. For me, I've kind of got a kind of preview version of the liveries that are available in the full game because I've got it early. So compared to those, I thought we'd just go with this one that you get for owning F1 2020 because I think it's a really mean looking livery. The way the white really complements the rest of the car, I think on the bottom and the front wing, works really well, and I love the back end, the engine cover. That design on the engine cover, it's just me. I think you guys will agree that design is very my kind of art style that I've gone with in the past when designing liveries myself with some PC modding. So I think this is a really great starting livery compared to what we started with on F1 2020. I think this is a real massive step up for a very starting one in Season 1 without any mods. And as for the logo of our team, we'll go with the same one that we had in F1 2020 because it fit really well. You've got that green lightning bolt on the left hand side, and then A for Aarava Archer Racing. But as I've always done with brand new F1 games, at the start in Season 1 we'll use all the in-game options to us, and then after that we'll open things up with some modding. But initially, showing you guys a brand new game in these first few episodes, definitely want to just give you guys a feel for the actual game that you're going to get, whether it's on PC or all the consoles. So finally, that is all the actual admin for the team done. There's a final little bit before we get into the headquarters, and that is having an interview with Will Buxton.
Hello folks, and welcome to a very special edition of Paddock Pass. As you can see, There's no pit lane behind me, and as you can hear, no roar of engines. And that's because they've set me free from the F1 paddock to escape here to the countryside and to the headquarters of Formula One's newest team. Now, it's not every day we get to pull back the curtain and look behind the scenes at an F1 team. Rarer still that we get to talk not only to the team owner, but also the team's lead driver. But what makes this place extra special is that the owner and lead driver are one and the same person. Now, it's been an interesting 12 months, and we all know a number of the regulation changes which were due to come into effect this year have been delayed until next. Some, though, are still seeing the light of day, amongst them the all-important budget cap, which gives some of the smaller teams a little further down the order, potentially, the opportunity to compete with the bigger teams. Good for them, but great for us as viewers. But what does our new team owner think about these new rules? Do they see them as a challenge, a hurdle that needs to be overcome? Perhaps they see them as an opportunity to disrupt the status quo, a chance to come out swinging and to carve their name into Formula One history. Well, I had the opportunity to ask them these very questions just earlier today, and here's what they had to say. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting us here today. It's been wonderful to see behind the scenes. As you might expect, I've got about 1 million questions, so let's jump straight in. It's been a long time since we last saw a team owner take their own car onto the track, and the sport's changed enormously in the intervening years. How are you going to handle the responsibilities of both managing and driving for a Formula One team?
Opening answer, there's not actually anything to gain really from this answer in terms of, morale of departments. So I'm just going to go with, I won't lie, it's been a lot of work, but I wouldn't have been taking up this opportunity if I didn't think we could do it. And obviously, that is the goal, taking this team right to the very top.
Let's talk about your teammate. Now, it's clear they're excited to have signed with you, but tell me, what is it that you think they bring to the team?
As I mentioned, choosing Callum Ilott is a case of looking at the stats, seeing if he fits our team. The focus there was really good, and also he's got some decent stats. I think he'll be a pretty decent driver, so I think their skill set is going to suit our team. That's the way I want to go about it.
So you've obviously been putting a lot of work into the car. I know it's early days, but how do you expect it to feel out there?
Now, we haven't even turned the wheel yet, all the sim data in the world, but we just don't know. We won't know until we go testing, until we actually go out on track. So we're going to go with that, and we'll kind of see where we are then.
Most of the other teams can boast years of experience in Formula One. Where do you see the opportunities to make those vital performance gains you need to put you within reach of the other cars?
Now, this question and answer is a really important one because it will directly impact what starting R&D you may have initially on those minor upgrades at the start of the R&D process. So we're going to go with the right-hand side answer, the drag reduction answer, because as I've stated, the FOM car, it's very draggy, very heavy. So let's try and answer that in a way to try and get some extra upgrades on that side.
Ultimately, your success this season is going to come down to whether you can take positions from the other drivers. What is it about your car that's going to give you that edge in those battles?
Again, going with the answer on the right-hand side actually quite nicely. Developing an incredibly light car, so that again will give us an extra upgrade. So again, that's going to give us a starting upgrade already installed onto the car on the chassis side of things compared to everything else.
And finally, with so many specialist departments working together here at your headquarters, and with such an important deadline coming up, who's getting that coveted Teacher's Gold Star? Which group do you feel the most proud of right now?
And this final question is not about the R&D, it's about the HQ facilities and which one is going to have a higher spec level than the others. Now, I think aero. We need to reduce the drag, but also we're going to want to add downforce because we're going to have pretty much no downforce in comparison to every other team, really. So both those things are under aero, so let's complement the aero department and get that higher, and get that to a higher spec level in the HQ facility.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful to get an insight from you and, of course, to see around the headquarters. Thank you for today. Really appreciate it. And thank you all at home for watching as well. We'll see you very soon.
Well, that was a nice little chit-chat with Will Buxton, and definitely a step up, I think, from last year's game. You'll agree with me, hopefully, in terms of the graphic fidelity and the vista of that really cool headquarters with the helipad and whatnot. So cool to see they're going to build upon that, and hopefully it'll continue to be even cooler every single year when you come to it, those kind of intro things. But here we are then, back in a very familiar My Team Career Mode menu. But this is the new digs. Everything's reset though. It's really, we've got a long journey ahead of us. It's weird coming off the back of the end of F1 2020 and coming to this now where everything's back to 0. Aerodynamics we've got on spec 1, but every other HQ facility is spec 0. Of course, that's because of the way we answered that final question and we complemented the aero department. So we've already got one set of upgrades on fabrication, build time, quality control, and resource point generation on the aerodynamics. All those things we're going to have to obviously purchase and upgrade slowly. As I've always stated, I think marketing is going to be quite important early days, because the higher the marketing is, the better and quicker you're getting a claim level, and then that's how you get better sponsors and more money, and then you pump that money back into the HQ, and then you can actually then get some R&D upgrades because you've got higher HQ. So it all feeds into it. So as I did on last year's game, I think we are going to try and upgrade the marketing facility at some point within the last third of this season, but initially we'll focus on things like aero and chassis, maybe the personnel as well to try and boost Calamai a lot. I think we'll kind of give the powertrain durability a backseat depending on how this season's going. If I feel like the engine side needs an upgrade or the car is very, breaking down a lot, we'll see, because obviously for the first time now we've also got player faults in the game. So if that's an actual big issue on the game now, then we actually will be forced into upgrading the durability for once to a decent level maybe compared to everything else. But initially we'll focus on getting the car as light as possible, at the least little drag as possible, and then also getting that downforce on the car as well, and then the rest will follow. But we've still got those same beautiful vistas in the menu of F1 2021, and as I said there, seeing everything reset to 0, it's also weird to see these vistas. We've got the very basic, in like a one-room garage sort of thing. We've only got a couple of engineers working on the car basically on laptops, and there's no fancy kind of wind tunnels or anything like that. So we're a long ways off from the top in terms of how our facilities look and also the performance of the car. But that's the job of my team career mode. We've got a long journey ahead of us, and it may be a lot longer than usual because of those custom settings we did with basically nerfing myself and buffing the AI for the rates that they gain things like acclaim, money, resource points. But that's a challenge I'm relishing. I really am looking forward to taking this team right back up to the top like we did on F1 2020. But in terms of the pecking order then of where we are, kind of like last year, we're just ahead of the kind of bottom teams, and we're kind of in the bottom of the midfield fight. We're kind of alongside Alfa Romeo, maybe just under Alfa Tauri, but ahead of Williams and Haas. So, but that we know that midfield from real life is really competitive, so it's going to be tough. And also the R&D chart and how everything is relative to one another, we know that the AI, the actual drivers themselves, can make a massive difference. So it's just a case of let's just see how it goes in quali and the race for this first episode, and then we'll truly know where we stand with the car. But we've got a little bit of time before the first race of the season in the activity timeline in the calendar here, so we've got enough time to purchase one first upgrade on the HQ facility. We've got not that much money, but we've got enough money to purchase 1.5 million, the build time upgrade on the chassis side of things. So that's going to ensure that the time it takes to make those upgrades is shortened a little bit by 20% there. We could have gone on fabrication, but this early doors, I think having a quicker time to build it is better than having simultaneous upgrades that take longer, just because I want them to come a little bit quicker right now, and we're not at a stage where we even have enough R&D points to purchase multiple upgrades at the same time in the same department. So I think it was logical to buy the build time there. We've obviously already got spec 1 the aero, so we don't need to worry about that side of things. So we'll go for the chassis. Like I said, those are the two main areas that I think we should focus on for getting the car lighter and quicker in a straight line, less draggy that we know it is from last year's game. But we've got, as I said, some time in the activity timeline to spread out. So we're going to go on aero and chassis focus up until the Grand Prix weekend. Literally a perfect little activity timeline for us to do there. And then we also went with a pre-season advertisement campaign to get the team a little bit more acclaim level, which can be really important because, as you can see clearly now, everything is back to square one, locked on this year's game, and we've got to work our way up from level acclaim 1 all the way to level acclaim 25 to unlock all 4 sponsors. But the first one is acclaim level 5 that hopefully we can get within the next, couple episodes. So we now run through the weeks on the activity timeline, and we're going to see that chassis upgrade come through, and also we're going to gain some extra resource points as well. Obviously, you gain resource points every single week in the timeline, and that rate can be increased depending on what upgrades you have on the HQ, because we can upgrade the resource point generation, which might be an upgrade we actually do, because in last year's game, I didn't do it to make sure we weren't too overpowered. But now that we've got the custom settings, maybe it might be worth doing those upgrades to help us out gain some more resource points every week naturally. But with that then, it is now time to reveal the car. I'll say it again, but I actually really dig this starting livery. Like, as a basic livery, without modding and stuff, compared to what we had last year, I think this is a really good starting one for us. I love the white. It really complements the black and the fluoro. At the same time, you may notice we've got a load more sponsor slots, and this is a great improvement to see. Not quite the full improvement I wanted to see, like a Gran Turismo-style livery editor, but, you know, we'll take what we can get here. We've got now 11 different slots for sponsors that are darted around the car, and every single one can be customized with its own color. So now you can actually choose the color of the sponsor to make sure the colors fit and don't clash too much. The positioning can't be changed, but the actual position on the car, there's 11 different slots now compared to, I think we only had 6 areas of the car they were on last year. So it's an improvement on F1 2020 for sure. It's still not quite where I'd love it to be, of course, for those of you on console that can't do PC modding, but it's a step in the right direction. Also now, once we've revealed the car, we're going to go ahead and purchase a chassis weight reduction, a major one in fact, so 1,000 R&D points spent. So we've only got 62 points now, so we've spent pretty much everything already on one first upgrade, and that's not even going to come in time for the Bahrain Grand Prix. That will come in after episode number 1 here, so that'll be in time for the second race of the season, but it is a major weight reduction, so that should give some decent performance going into every single corner, in and out of it, having that car be a bit lighter, a bit nimble on the handling. As we move on, we've actually got a brand new departmental event.
It looks like you've had a meeting request from one of our departments. As the boss, departments will often reach out to you for advice on how to handle the various ongoings of your team. These events can range from everything from organizing charity events to dealing with driver matters. How you decide to handle these will have an impact on not only our resources, but how the press perceives us.
So this is also a brand new feature then in the F1 2021 game. We've got a personnel department meeting, but any department from our HQ facilities could ask us for a meeting, or they'll have a query, and we have a decision to make that could affect the team negatively or positively.
The personnel department has asked us to deal with this. We have a couple of options here. Take your time. What you decide to do will have consequences.
So our very first departmental event we've got is from the personnel HQ, and it's to do with Callum Ilott now. So he's been really hitting his stride in the simulator recently. While they're in the groove, in the zone, where should we be focusing them on pace or awareness? Now, awareness is going to enable them to make less mistakes, maybe. The pace is the outright speed they've got. I think at this early stage, I'd rather the pace. You know, they have 2 drivers at the start of the game. Obviously, in comparison to the other F1 drivers on the actual grid are going to be slower, so having that pace boost will maybe enable Ilott to help us out a bit in the championship early days in Season 1.
Thanks. I know these kinds of decisions can be challenging, but I think you made the right call.
So that was probably the first of many department kind of issues and day-to-day things we're going to have to decide every single episode now as a new part of the My Team career mode on this game. But it's now time to go to the race weekend and show you guys the brand new quick practice as well. So this is a really great way to earn resource points and earn resource development boosters, which are essentially ways to get money, or resource points rather, off R&D upgrades. But at the same time, you have this kind of small little mini game. So instead of just simulating the session like you did on last year's game, you can have this little mini game where there's actually a little bit of jeopardy of whether you risk it. You can see there's 70% success, 50%, 25% success on these kind of practice programs we can do, and so you can risk risk it with one that's a lower success rate, but at the same time, obviously, you may not get that, and you're wasting time on the bottom there with the program running. So we're going through that, trying to get as many of these as we can, and trying to, you know, save R&D points, basically cut R&D points off these things like the engine power. You saw there maybe some weight reduction, some redistribution as well, and you can do that for every practice session, FP1, FP2, FP3, and also at the same time earn just flat out resource points for doing the programs. But it's a great way to do it for those of you like me, kind of a veteran of the F1 game. I've done enough practice in my day. I don't need to do it all the time, and it's still a fun way to play the game with this mini game on the timeline. So a decent 375 resource points earned. So we got a total there of 1,134, which is pretty decent. And you'll see now as we go through, we're also being shown what upgrades we've actually got some boosters on, i.e. the kind of discount on the R&D. So when we go to purchase an R&D upgrade now, in episode 2 maybe, after this Bahrain Grand Prix, we might see a few of them are actually on discount because of what we've done in practice here. But it is finally now time to go out on track and drive this car for the first time in anger on this game. So, I mean, there was a fair amount of admin to do, I'll admit, but it always is with episode 1 of a series like this, especially with my team, with so much more to do now with the management of the whole team. But here we are then, our brand new Honda-powered FOM My Team car, Season 1, basic livery, basic look, but you got to start somewhere, and we're starting here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. And like I said, the first time I'm driving this car, you know, with some actual pace and gusto compared to practice, where I did do a few laps in FP1 just to kind of get the hang of the handling a little bit. But, you know, like I've said before in the preview videos, the handling of the car is somewhat familiar to F1 2020, but you can tell the tyres are definitely more on edge, and the curbs are so much more deadly and a bit more realistic. So you have to try and pick your lines very neatly. And also, I think in the race, I think tyre wear, as I've said before in the tips video I uploaded just before earlier over the weekend, I think the tyre wear is going to be a major factor on this year's game with how well you do versus AI. But, you know, early doors, really, I'm going into it with an open mind. You know, we don't know what this car is going to be like. Although it is the same sort of shape of the FOM car, it is a different game, so it may have slightly different characteristics, a different way of getting speed out of it. So I'm just kind of seeing where we are, and we'll just go from there. So at the moment, matching Callum Ilott there, and Ilott, I don't know, that's more impressive for Ilott to match me, because we know from last year's game, the F2 drivers really did find it quite difficult at the start of the game, without any kind of upgrades and whatnot on the personnel, to match us as a player with such a poor car, because they're an F2 driver, obviously. So let's see how well Ilott does versus us, and hopefully he can be closer to us than Schumacher was for us on F1 2020 when we started it this time last year. But we've gone out for a second run then in Q1, and we're finding some decent time, you know, about 2/10 there, just up the hill off the hairpin. So must have got quite a poor exit on the first run. I'm going to try and carry that speed through into the last bend now as we go across the line. Nearly about 4.5 tenths then gained on the top right there, and we're back up into P16 after being a little bit lower. Of course, remember, at this stage of our career mode, we're just looking to get out of Q1. That's where the car is, you know. We're right at the bottom of the midfield, just above Haas and Williams, and we're kind of challenging with Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri, it would seem, on the R&D chart it was earlier. So that would mean we're kind of on the cusp of maybe making Q2, but at the moment, that third run, you saw there, I actually lost time in the first sector, and then I just kept losing time. So I don't know, the track just fell away, and I was making too many mistakes in the third run, so we actually didn't improve on that third lap. So the second lap we did, the second run, that's going to be the fastest we did, but that won't be enough, I don't think. We're right on the cusp, P16, but by the end of it, Charles Leclerc is the fastest man of all in Q1, but we are just going to get knocked out in P17. So for the first time of asking, we don't make it through into Q2, but that's fair enough. I didn't expect it, to be honest. Ilott P19, a couple of tenths down, but not too horrendous. I'll take that. It's early doors, obviously, for Callum as well, so we'll see how it kind of beds into the car. For us, though, we weren't too far off Q2, so that's quite promising, and it looks like we might be in a fight with Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri and the two Alfa Romeos of Raikkonen and Giovinazzi at the start of this thing. So let's go to the grid for the first time in this My Team career mode on F1 2021.
Months of rumour and speculation all come to an end today as we return to racing for the opening event of what promises to be an enthralling season. welcome along then to round 1 of this year's Formula 1 World Championship. Formula 1 returns to the desert today on this exceptional 3.36 mile circuit. 15 corners provide plenty of overtaking opportunities. It could be a strategic race, this one, with Sakir notorious for eating up the rear tyres. Watch out for drivers managing their rubber at some point during the Grand Prix. A new season then, a clean slate where anything could happen. Anthony Davidson is with me today as we get another year of Formula 1 underway.
We're into those tense few minutes before the first race then. Everyone's a little bit nervous about reliability. They haven't been running in the hot, turbulent wake of other cars in practice, and they've not been pushing at 100% for long durations. Let's hope no one has to deal with any nasty surprises.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Perez, Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo and Norris, Vettel, Sainz, Leclerc and Lance Stroll, Gasly, Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda and Ocon, Raikkonen, Mazepin, the owner driver, and Antonio Giovinazzi, Russell, Latifi, Mick Schumacher, and Callum Islet. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
I am absolutely raring to go then for our first ever race on this career mode and game. From P17, I think we can do some work. I think we can definitely try and look to jump a couple of people and surprise some with a one-stop strategy, starting on the medium tire, going to hards. Everyone outside the top 10 gets a free choice, of course, so there will be plenty of people also doing this strategy. But those of, in the top 10 who just made it through, I'm thinking maybe the McLarens, maybe a couple of the Aston Martins, if they're in the top 10, starting on the soft compound tire, they have to do a 2-stop because the tyre wear is too high for them to try a 1 from the soft compound. We could have a chance of maybe brushing shoulders with them in the race. Whether we keep the track position we gain with the 1 less stop is another question, but, the first race of the season, nay, the entire series, it's a complete step to the unknown, and it's really just excitement of kicking this series off, if anything, and then just seeing where we are come the end of the race on the last lap. So here we go then, revving up to 5 red lights. So the Bahrain Grand Prix, the beginning of Season 1 of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode is underway. The lights are out. It's a slow start for Raikkonen, a great one for us. Good launch using overtake mode on the left-hand side and trying to see where we can go. It's all very tight on the inside of me. 4 abreast into turn 1. We take a bit of a wide line to make sure we don't get hits on the inside. We have to lift off a little bit and tuck in behind Lance Stroll, but we've made some good progress up into P14. Already 3 positions gained, but Ocon behind me in the Alpine going very aggressive. The Frenchman dives down the inside. We go on the outside line to keep the racing line essentially as we go on through to the next section, and we will maintain the position on the Frenchman. But that was very aggressive from Ocon straight off the bat. Good to see the AI being that punchy. And as race starts go, the first race with this specific car on heavy fuel, I don't think that's too bad as a race start. 3 positions gained ahead of an Alpine that is much quicker, definitely on paper. I think done pretty well, but let's see how this progresses as Ocon is already got his nose in. We're a bit wide on the left-hander. Get on the curb, and that exit, it was really, really poor. And Ocon's on the left, and look at George Russell go. The Williams car's going to make it 3 wide. We're going to get pinched in through the left. It's oh so close. We back out that. We make contact with Ocon on the inside, and George Russell has got 2 positions for 1. Russell's flying. He's up into P14 in the Williams car, and we got almost sandwiched in the middle. We had to take some avoiding action, and we still managed to hit Ocon a little bit on the rear end, up the hill on the left-hander. So we're down 2 positions, so much so for a great race start. The first sector, okay, but then from sector 2 onwards, not too great. Still getting to grips with, the turn in the car, and that understeer just kicked in a bit too much on that left-hander down the hill. Already a very tricky corner anyway, locking up the front tyres, let alone with some understeer as well. But we're going to try and re-overtake Ocon if we can. We size up a move using a little bit of overtake mode on the main straight, side by side into turn 2, and Ocon blinks first to lift off off and lets us through on the inside. So we're back up into P15, and we can now chase back after George Russell to re-overtake him. But initially, you know, initial feelings, yeah, odd that there's no rich mix, and also I'm very, very, you know, aware now that we have to really hyper-focus on how much ERS we're using, how much, where and when we're using the overtake mode, because now the overtake mode is really the only differentiating factor, you know, in the race, because no one is going to be on rich versus standard mixture versus lean mixture. Everyone's on standard until they start to run out of fuel at the end of the race, if they get to that point. You don't want to get to that point. So the only massive difference that you're able to make in the cockpit at your disposal, apart from just driving a bit quicker, is using overtake mode. So that's going to be, I think, a really important thing as we go on and progress through this game, really understanding how to best use ERS through the race in comparison to maybe how we used it in previous F1 games. It might be slightly different because there's so much more focus on when you're using overtake mode to make that difference, to get the job done in a straight line, you know, off the back end of a corner. And speaking of, we're trying to chase after Russell using a little bit of overtake mode there to just catch up and get well within 1 second and right underneath the rear wing of Russell as we go on to a brand new lap number 4 on the top left here. And now can we try and get into P14? We're going to try and breeze past with DRS. Russell goes a little bit towards the inside, but ultimately kind of gives us free rein to go down the inside. Maybe, you know, understands that in the end we probably will be the quicker car, so he just lets us through. We go a little bit deep into turn 1 as we're still getting to grips with the braking and, you know, where everything is and kind of sussing things out. So it's, yeah, it's going to take a couple of races, I feel, to get fully comfortable, as it always does on any new F1 game. But at the sharp end then, it's a 1-2 for Mercedes here. Bottas leads the way, I think, to Hamilton in second. It was Sergio Perez in third, but now Max Verstappen comes to make an overtake. The number 1 Red Bull driver going round the outside. Surprised to see Perez actually ahead at this stage there, but fair play. But Verstappen gets to move into turn 2, and he's up into P3. Now, can he chase after the 2 Mercedes? That'll be the question for the top spots on the podium. And then behind the Aston Martin, 2 McLarens and 2 Ferraris. These are the cars that maybe we're looking to try and annoy with the 1 stop if they are on a 2 and unfortunately come out behind us on track. So let's kind of, you know, wait around for that and see how that progresses. And meanwhile, a fight just up the road from us is brewing between Fernando Alonso, this is, and Yuki Tsunoda, the AlphaTauri. I thought was going to be fighting Tsunoda in this race, having qualified just behind him. He had a Megastar as well, just like I did, and he finds himself fighting Alonso, but Alonso gets the job done on the outside. He had DRS into turn 1 to aid him, and he's up the position, and Tsunoda is now directly the car ahead of me that we're chasing after. Still a bit of time to catch up, but we've got clean air ahead of us, and so we're doing the best job we can. But at the same time, as I said, still getting to grips with the car and going wide here and just getting a really poor exit. And I was actually shocked at how quickly Russell flew past us here. DRS, of course, in this straight, but it was really the acceleration he got off the left-hander. That's how much you can lose time now on the curbs in comparison to F1 2020. Like, you really have to either make sure you avoid them, or you're going to have to lift off to make sure you don't spin out on the curb. And even if you don't spin out on a curb, you're going to lose some acceleration now, more so than you ever did on the previous game. And that's kind of showing in the way the Williams car just breezed past us there in a straight line. But also, maybe shows straight away, once again, like we knew on F1 2020, that, you know, yeah, the car and the pecking order is there. It indicates how quick the car is, but the individual AI drivers, they can make a massive difference. You're seeing that here with Russell, you know, fighting me in P15 and his teammate Latifi way down the order, you know, at the back of the pack with our teammate Callum Ilott. It makes a massive difference at their rating, their focus. Even more so now, I reckon the focus this year is going to mean that AI, they make a bigger difference than ever, like we saw in F1 2020, but even more so now with that focus stat. And actually, in a weird way, Russell overtaking us then was actually a bit of a positive wake-up call for me to kind of wake up a little bit and get my head down to try and find a little bit more pace to close the gap to Tsunoda up ahead as we move on to lap number 8. Then now we've got the first pit stops being made, and Hamilton actually comes through into the inside, makes some contact with us as we overtake Lewis Hamilton. The Mercedes car there comes out very awkwardly, of course. Now these guys on the softs. They're on the 2-stop. Obviously, I don't think we're going to keep Hamilton behind, but, you know, it was crucial to not lose too much time there into turn 1, and he just kind of got a bit too eager, but now here he goes to the inside. We're going to let him through easily, not lose too much time if we can help it, because I'm still chasing after Tsunoda, who is on the road ahead of us here, ahead of Hamilton. He's yet to pit. He's also on mediums, and obviously Russell behind is still chasing us down. But look at this then. Into turn 1, Bottas was leading the race, I think, but he's come up behind Hamilton then. So Hamilton with the massive undercut, and Bottas and his side of the garage have been caught napping. So Hamilton, I think, effectively will lead the Grand Prix then, ahead of Bottas, and Verstappen, who was in 3rd on the road, remember, is behind us at the moment in P7. He's just overtaken Russell though, and it won't be any time to waste space until he overtakes us here in a straight line, just letting him through, not using ERS on purpose to make sure he gets through. A little bit of contact there because that was a bit awkward. I was kind of expecting him to kind of go a little bit deeper into that corner to waltz away from us, but he makes the move. We don't lose too much time, and crucially, I think we are visually closer to Tsunoda, and right there you can see Verstappen has held him up so much there. So the big sister team not helping the junior sister team too much there, and Tsunoda is right in our sights now. So towards the end of this stint, as the tyre wear's kicked in for the AI as well, seems like we've gone a little bit better. We let Perez through on the inside here. Very awkward place to let him through, but we just about manage him. We don't lose too much time, I don't think. But yeah, so far, at the moment, this stage, it's just all focused on catching Tsunoda and a bit of a blue flag show at the moment. So, you know, remember this episode, remember this situation when we're, you know, in 2-3 seasons' time, you know, at the sharp end of the grid. You know, it's just where you have to start somewhere, and this is what it's like in these first few races of my team, that we're going to get lapped by the top teams, the very teams that will be fighting tooth and nail for the championship, I'm sure, in a couple of seasons' time. But here we are now, looking at Yuki Tsunoda. Big dive bomb down the inside, pretty much doing what Tsunoda did to so many people in real life at Bahrain. Ballsy, confident under brakes, and now I'm starting to find the groove of this car, you know, finding the confidence under braking. And like I was saying just before we got overtaken by Perez, I think the tyre wear, as I've said, I think it's going to be crucial for the player to figure that out. I think, you know, you're going to feel the tyre wear more because the tyre model, the new one in this game, is so much more edgy. Like, you just feel like the car is on edge and can go at any moment. And so therefore, I think it's going to be useful to upgrade tyre wear and things like that. But at the same time, I think it will also affect the AI. And you're seeing that here towards the end of stints. Just like real humans, I think the AI are going to feel a bit more realistic in the way they drop off. And they're not going to be perfect computers for the entire stint, which is good to see, obviously, because that was always an issue sometimes in previous F1 games, was you could kind of tell that they're just pinpoint accurate and perfect and they don't make any mistakes, whereas now in the recent games they're making more mistakes, and this year's game they may make mistakes in terms of when it comes to tyre wear. But lap number 14 then, and we've got yellow flags, and speaking about mistakes, oh my word, great timing. That is absolutely excellent commentary timing. Mick Schumacher, massive mistake on the mediums. Looks like he span it on the right-hander. He's still on medium, so I wonder if the tyre wear kicked in too much for him, and he was feeling that, because all of us have already pit in for that first and last pit stop we're doing onto hard tyre. So I wonder if he just tried to stretch it a bit too much, lost the back end or something, and span over the curb, still being on those first set of mediums. We won't know, because I don't actually, unfortunately, have a replay camera of that. Apologies, but I assume that has got something to do with tyre wear, because no one else has had an incident, and no one was involved in that incident apart from Schumacher. As we now move on, though, through this next stint on hard, Tsunoda coming back at us, though. He was slow at the end of the last stint, but now he's sped up again on the fresh compound. He goes to the inside. We're going to squeeze him to the inside of turn 1, take the wider racing line. We can't fully cut back in for a switchback as Yuki places the car really well, but then on the exit we get DRS, that first DRS on that extra zone that we've had at Bahrain for a few years now. Tsunoda defensive to the inside. We go around the outside then. Can we go the long way around and dance the car around? Oh no, back end steps out. We lost the rear and we had to make some contact with Tsunoda's side pod there. Lucky not to have any damage, you know. Remember, we've got that new damage model on this year's game. The side pod, the barge area, it can all be broken and damaged now, so we're lucky not to get anything. We do have it on simulation damage, I can confirm, but of course, to be fair, on that half little spin, it was more our tyre hitting the side pod of Yuki rather than our actual bodywork, so we kind of come out scot-free and we can live to fight another day. And now we've got a second bite of the cherry with DRS. Yuki moving to the inside. We're going to go to the outside there. Bit of a wobble on the rear end for Tsunoda as he tries to control the car. We go around the outside. It's so close on the left, using a bit of ERS mode to power us through up the hill, and we're past and we're back up the order ahead of Yuki Tsunoda into P12 at the moment. And the thing is, it's not just P12. It's not going to end there. There's still some people ahead of us yet to pit in this race then. So we are going to be jumping ourselves maybe, just maybe, into some points paying positions. And then we'll see what we can do from then, because it's going to be a question of how quick are the others and can they, you know, catch us and re-overtake us on their 2 stops. But there goes Lance Stroll in the pit lane. Leclerc, Ricciardo. This is going to be so close with Daniel Ricciardo. We go really to the inside to squeeze him in and give him the hardest time possible into turn 1. And we get the position. We're up into P9. At the moment, we've got 2 championship points. This is massive for us in the first race. But Ricciardo is straight away overtaking Tsunoda in the background. We've got yellow flags, though, as Raikkonen with an engine failure. The smoke goes up for the Alfa Romeo team. And Kimi is going to be out of the Bahrain Grand Prix. The first retirement of the entire series goes to the Iceman there, and that is going to be him out. That's crucial for us. You know, we're fighting Alfa Romeo in the championship probably in season 1, obviously being near them in the R&D chart, so that's really big news for us. But we've got bigger things to worry about right now, because Ricciardo in the McLaren, a very quick McLaren, is chasing after us, but the safety car is now called out, and that must be for Raikkonen parked up, because no other incidents happened. So the full course safety car is out in our very first race of my team career mode, and this is going to make things interesting and a little bit annoying, because to be honest, if I actually would have preferred not to have a safety car, because the one-stop strategy, the whole thing is you have track position, you have that distance you've gained via making more or less pit stop. That's now being eroded effectively with the safety car. So I'm actually a little bit annoyed the safety car's come out. I didn't actually want to see it in this race, and it's actually going to hinder our strategy versus help it. But at the moment, the safety car has not actually picked up the leaders yet. Alonso is the one being picked up by the safety car. So these guys are going on for another lap then, it would seem. You've got Verstappen, the 2 Mercedes cars. The AlphaTauri of Gasly is also in there for some reason, and they're going out for another lap. You can see the safety cars just parked there very awkwardly, somewhat dangerously as well, you can maybe argue. And I think he's waiting for these guys to come back around again. So here's Bottas. Bottas is actually one that leads the 2 Mercedes then. So he got back past Hamilton, but Bottas doesn't get picked up by the safety car. Bottas goes on. Is that a mistake by Bottas? Or a mistake by the safety car? And Bottas goes on with Hamilton, with Verstappen, with Pierre Gasly, and the safety car is actually going to pick up this man, Fernando Alonso. Alonso is the effective leader of the pack here. Perez, Vettel, and myself. But we're not gained positions. Those 4 other cars, the 2 Mercedes, the Red Bull, and the AlphaTauri of Gasly, they're all still in P1 to P4. But they are now at the back of the train for some reason. So slight little hiccup with how the safety car works here. I'm not too sure what's gone on, but they're at the back of the pack, but they're still ahead of us. So they're effectively going to be 1 lap ahead of us, essentially, because they're right there at the back of the pack. But yeah, as weird as this is, and maybe a little bit of a foible and mistake here with how the safety car is operating, it does make things quite exciting, because here we are then on the restart. We're effectively P4 on this train, and we get a great launch off the safety car, and we're going to go side by side with the Aston Martin and Vettel. Can we make a dive to the inside of Perez? No, I didn't feel as confident in that. And to be fair to Vettel, he's actually done a fantastic job in the brake zone there. We couldn't get Perez, and we can't even get Vettel, because look at the difference there. This is the difference we've got to try and bridge to cars like Aston Martin. Vettel is able to maintain the position. He had a great turn 1, and we just couldn't match him on the braking basically. Also, you remember, you can upgrade the brakes on the R&D as well, so that's something to improve for sure versus the kind of upper tier midfield teams. But what we are doing at the moment is being an absolute wide as a bus car at the moment to really defend as much as we can against Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, who's coming at us at a rate of knots. This is the battle for P8 as it stands into turn 1. Really late on the brakes, a bit too late to be honest, as we go a little bit deep. Ricciardo gets the switch back, but we're going to just try and hang it through, and we'll maintain this lead we've got on the Australian for now. And we've also got the aid of some faster cars catching up and going for blue flags here. And so once again, we're having trying to let through some Mercedes guys, Bottas and Hamilton. A bit awkward. They've caught me be the worst time ever. So we let off here, let them through the right-hander, and that's a really close battle. That is the battle for the lead right there, and there's only a couple of tenths in it between Hamilton and Bottas. How exciting. Verstappen a little bit further back behind. He's already got past Ricciardo. He's the man I'm focusing on, the orange dot on the bottom left. So can we try and let Verstappen through here on the main straight? And then we should be fine. Verstappen, he's going to have DRS, I think, or maybe not actually, because it's within 3 laps of the safety car coming in. So I don't think he has DRS yet. So he's not actually caught up to us until now into the brake zone. So again, worst timing ever. Going to let him through on the next straight here. Can we please hurry this up, Verstappen? Please don't lose us too much time. He goes through on the left-hand side. We're going to tuck in and, well, we lost a bit of time, but I think that's probably the best we could have hoped for there. But once again, this left-hander causing me massive issues in the second sector on the curb, and we lose all sense of acceleration and composure through that one. And Ricciardo jumps us, but we're going to come back at him. Can we go sailing around the outside of a McLaren? Yes, we can. Just about hold it through. I think we got helped out a little bit by Pierre Gasly behind us showing blue flags to Ricciardo, who he may be slowing down for. He's overtaken Ricciardo, and Gasly comes at us at a rate of knots. Blue flag situation, trying to let him through, but also defend against Ricciardo. So we go to the inside, Ricciardo goes to the outside, and we had to make that crucial move over to the right-hand side to make sure the Australian didn't get that. But we are just hanging on by literally a thread. You really can tell the McLaren is the quicker car. And on to lap 27, we're squeezing Ricciardo right to the wall, but Ricciardo doesn't blink, and he goes through eventually, powers passes, and that, I'm afraid, is probably the fight over. We can't even have a little look to re-overtake him into turn 1, and on the exit, I mean, you can see there the rear end steps, and that McLaren is walking away now. So, you know, it was a nice dream to keep the McLaren behind, and it may be a dream as well to keep the Ferrari behind, but this is the second last lap, so this is right at the end, so there may not be enough time for Leclerc to get the move done. He goes round the outside, we're going to defend against a Ferrari here, and we're just about making our car wide enough to maintain the trap position. We must be really annoying these guys though, because our car has no right to be here, but it's just a strategy that's paid off for us. The one stop, it's put us in this position, it's put Tsunoda there just outside the top 10, and thankfully, because we got lapped by Lewis and all of them, Hamilton's gone on to win this one. He overtook Bottas for the lead, but because they lapped us, this is our last lap. I didn't realise. Lap 28, and so we come across the line not only for a point, but 2 points ahead of a Ferrari. What a first race. Mega strategy. The one stop worked out for us. We did some mega racing out there. That was so much fun. And that's a really great effort. 2 points to kick off the career.
Smiling faces on the pit wall after a superb win here at Sakhir. And rightly so. What a brilliant effort from the whole team. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection. A shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
So fair play there. Lewis Hamilton had to do an overtake on track to get that lead, because we saw Bottas was leading when they overtook us on the blue flags. So Hamilton's overtaken his teammate at some point and gotten the win. Bottas second, Verstappen third. But for us, 2 points. That is absolutely mega. Also, a little bit lucky, because I will admit, Bahrain on the F1 game, the one stop is very powerful. If you're outside the top 10, you start on mediums. We've known this now for a couple of F1 games. It's so good at getting midfield cars up into the points paying positions, and we're not even a proper midfield team. We're at the end of it, and we just about scraped that through and did enough defensive work to maintain that. So that's a really great effort, but I'm not expecting the same come the next race, for example, but I'll take it. You gotta take it when you're a new team in Formula 1 and you're just starting out. So it's a mega effort by the team. Some decent racing out there, some really fun racing there with Russell and Tsunoda especially as well, and we've come away with 2 points. Mega stuff.
You gained a lot of positions during the race, didn't you?
And for the first time then in this career, we've got our question and answers, meet the press with Claire, and so we're going to try and compliment the car nimbleness for this one.
You really looked in control of your car out there. Your team must be thrilled.
Yeah, could do this out without the team, trying to boost the morale there with this answer, I think, overall morale of every department.
It wasn't the cleanest race today, was it?
And I'm going to go with no comment for this one, because there's no good answer here, so just don't want to actually add anything.
Great. Well, that's everything.
So that boosted our acclaim a little bit with that second answer, and also the chassis morale, so that'll be quite good. I'll be trying to sprinkle in a few of the Claire interviews in the couple of first episodes, but then after a while, obviously, as you guys know, it gets a little bit repetitive, so you may not see them in videos, but of course, I'm still doing them in the background. The answers can still feed into the morale of certain departments, which is really important. The morale early on here, when we're a new team, Spec 0, Spec 1 and HQs, R&D, you know, we need to upgrade so much. The morale is going to be a massive thing to try and, you know, hopefully get parts a bit quicker, get upgrades on quicker without any failures and whatnot, etc. But that has been a really fantastic first race then. 2 points on the board. I am chuffed with that because I really did not think we were going to get any points, but that one stop is so powerful at Bahrain. Almost got kind of undone with the safety car, but yeah, as a first episode on the game goes, really promising. Some great aggressive racing with the AI, with Russell and Sonoda. We saw the safety car already. It took a long while on F1 2020 for us to see the safety car, so that was really cool as well. And overall, I think tyre wear wise, we weren't too bad, so that's a little bit promising that I can handle the tyre wear, but I still think it's going to be an issue at some places. Like, I dread to think at other places where tyre wear is even higher, how that's going to go, but that's the whole point of a new game. It's all exciting, it's all new, and it's all to play for in the coming episodes. So guys, if you did enjoy this very first episode though, be sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for weekly full-on content and daily My Team Career Mode uploads for the next few weeks. Till the next one, guys, hope you enjoyed today. Goodbye.